All right, so no, I suppose mini course in ArcGIS Pro is going to be complete without talking about analysis tools. Now, I've always found analysis tools quite difficult enough to incorporate into any kind of training resource, and that's solely because it's very expensive, and you might use an analysis tool once on a project 5 years from now, and you might never touch it again. So we'll just run through, I suppose, how you approach one analysis tool is how you approach everything. And again, there's no kind of silver bullet when it comes to analysis tools that allows you to go, yes, I now know every single analysis tool within ArcGIS Pro. Believe me, I have over a decade of experience as a GIS consultant and a GIS trainer solely dealing in ArcGIS technologies and software. And I don't know any analysis tools. And it's not for a lack of trying. It's just because it's so expensive, and it just depends on your individual use case. Of course, if we approach things spatially, oh, I want to buffer points and then extract them to an Excel file. We can do that. Of course, you start thinking geographically, you start thinking spatially. There should be analysis tool for XYZ, cool enough. And then you just confirm it within the toolbox. But tricky enough thing, let's give it a shot to approach in a video. Obviously, I won't be covering every single analysis tool here. I'll give you the ones that I use the most, and we'll go from there. But the same workflow, the same principles apply. Analysis tools typically need three things. Number one, the input file or files that you're using. Number two, the criteria or the constraints of the analysis, what you want to get out of that analysis. And then number three, an output file, name, file location. And that's typically what it needs: an input, criteria, output. And if you approach it like that, then, analysis tools become a lot easier. But say I have my schools that I've geocoded from a CSV in an earlier video, and I want to do some analysis on it now. And, it's not like the select by locations or select by attributes that I want to do. I want to produce an actual GIS data set off of this. Yeah. So first step is go into analysis. And you can see here I have two different options. I have tools. If I click on tools, it's going to give me absolutely everything. And note, it defaults to a search bar, right? So that should give you an indication of just how expansive these toolboxes are, right? That we have everything from 3D analysis, right? And even if we go in, like there's 3D proximity, 3D intersections, there's a whole bunch of analysis tools, right? And if you ever find a YouTube channel that covers every single one of these in detail, I would say fair play to them. But I would also say it's not impossible to cover every single thing because there's documentation online that covers everything. But you'd have to question if it's a good investment in your time to learn all of these different ones. Typically what I do is when I open up tools, I search for something. So for instance, if I want to export this to Excel, I type in Excel and I'd see all the tools. Oh, table to Excel, and I pop that up. I'd go ahead. Oh, somebody needs this as a KML. I'd go in there and I'd say KML, mapped KML, layered. Oh, perfect. And I have options. So I would say the first thing to do is to make use of this search bar. The second thing I would say is to make use of these kind of more commonly used analysis tools. So you can see summarize within is a good one. Spatial join, commonly used. Union, generate near tables, buffers, all sorts. Right. Let's just stick with I'll show you one or two analysis tools in action. But the idea here is that make use of these ones. And it's always going to depend on what specific analysis question your project is trying to answer. So is there a case for buffers? Do you want drive times? Do you want to see what intersects where that you can't do with a select by location, and just get answers from Pro? Or do you want to, search something and say, oh, does ArcGIS Pro have, any analysis tools for DWGs? And then DWGs come up, oh, CAD to geodatabase, export to CAD, copy. There's a whole bunch, yeah? But let's open up one of these, and let's open up like the first one that comes to mind is pairwise buffer. If we open that up, and you can see what I mean, it kind of follows three main components, right, that are kind of compulsory for it. The rest is optional. The first one, input features. And I can say, oh, I want to go schools, right? So I want to put a buffer on each school. The second component is given an output. So just say like schools buffer. And then the distance. Is it a linear unit? Is it a field? In this case, it's going to be a linear unit. Let's say we put 5 kilometer buffers on it. And then you have optionals. In this case, we're choosing planar. We're choosing geodesic. Geodesic is a more accurate representation of buffers. Planar is just projected coordinate systems. They're all projected coordinate systems at the end of the day using software. It's not obviously going to be real world accurate to the millimeter, but geodesic is a good one to choose. Dissolve type, we'll get back to this, right? But from here, I have my 3 main components that I need. I have my input, my output, and then the criteria, right? Or the constraints of the analysis tool itself. And then I might have a few different options. Cool enough. But if I run this, and we're just trying to talk you through the process of running analysis tools. And you can see here, it spits out a buffer. And if I right click this, open the attribute table, I can see it maintains the attributes from each school. And it says the buffer distance, and it gives me an origin feature ID. Yeah. Now, if I go back to this and say, I meant to actually say 6 kilometers instead of 5 kilometers, that is very easy to handle in ArcGIS Pro in the sense that I can now overwrite things. So if I just go in, keeping everything the same, and I just replace that 5 with a 6, and then hit run, it'll overwrite the previous results layer, So a few times when you're running analysis tools, you might have to have a few different goes at it, yeah? So we come in and we say, oh, previously I used 5 kilometers. I was actually meant to be 6. I can run it again, it runs straight away. Or I say, oh, you know what? Instead of dissolve, I actually want just a single continuous feature here. And if I run that, then you can see everything is dissolved. Or I say, actually, I want to dissolve features using zip, right? The list goes on. But essentially, what we're doing here is the ability to overwrite analysis tools. If you take that down and say, oh, do you know what? I now have a buffer that has schools. So I have 6 kilometers from each school in this example. And now I want to summarize within. You can go back to your bookmarks here. So these are the most commonly used analysis tools. And summarize within is another one that essentially counts how many points intersect a polygon. And again, on the previous video, select by location answers all of these. But if you need to stand over actual data sets and have them for reference, then you need to start using analysis tools. Yeah. But the idea here is that I select my input. In this case, it's going to be schools buffer. Input summary features. So if you're counting, right? So oftentimes your input might include 1 or 2 or multiple different data sets, but I want to count air codes within it. My output can be schools summary maybe, or schools count. And then, my third component is the constraint of the analysis. So I go into field and I say, oh, I want you to be able to, count whatever it is. Yeah. We can go in here or just run it straight away as well. And it's just going to count how many points are within this polygon itself. Now, probably not the best analysis example, just because I have, one continuous feature covering most of a county, trying to calculate, like there's a lot of records within it, but I'm sure you take my point. You start to summarize within, use counts, and then we have optional extras such as summary fields, where I might have, like, if I was using this for schools, I might have school enrollment type. I might have, this data set has residential delivery points, commercial delivery points, building type ID. If I wanted to see what's an apartment, what's a semi-detached house, what's a detached house. If I wanted to group it by a particular field, I could. These are all optional ones. But again, right click our school summary once it's output, and it tells me the count of points. Then go back in and say, oh, you actually want, a summary field added in, go from there, build it up. But that is how to tackle analysis tools. You always need an input, an output, and a constraint of the analysis. So in summarize within, it was like, what point data set do you want me to count within these polygon area? Within buffer, it was like, well, what do you want to buffer to? 5 kilometers, 200 meters, whatever it is. It always follows those 3 components. The most important thing about analysis tools is that you are coming to analysis tools with a specific question to answer, because, really in ArcGIS Pro, it starts to vary a lot. Like I said, you're going to have analysis tools that you go run it once, you never run it again. And I have a load of them in my back pocket. But just remember, analysis, make use of this window here if you want to. These are the most commonly used tools, or you want to find out yourself, go into find tools, search it, or indeed go into each toolbox and start expanding them to see what you're entitled to. Yeah, but that is how to get started. Rough and ready, I know, but how to get started with analysis tools in ArcGIS Pro.